What's up, everybody? My name is Imani Oakley, and I am the congressional candidate for New Jersey's 10th Congressional District, and this is my domestic policy gauntlet. Now I'm going to be talking about Medicare for All. I want to go on record by saying that I am in favor of Medicare for All, but I want to break that down and talk about what that means. As a person who has lived with great healthcare, who has lived with okay healthcare, and who has lived completely without healthcare, I know how dire it is for us to fix our healthcare system. Back when I was able to be on my mother's healthcare insurance, I had great insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield in New Jersey. And it was great. I was able to get my prescriptions for cheap. I was able to see specialists for cheap. And, that was a great deal. But here's kind of, when you dig a little deeper, what was actually happening. My mother's job took on half of the cost for that healthcare plan. And my mother, again, who was a preschool teacher on a preschool teacher's salary, took on the other half of that cost. So there's already more spending that needs to be done happening right there. But then when I aged out of that insurance and now was responsible for getting insurance on my own, I couldn't have that same insurance anymore because on the low end, it's about $400 per month. And on the high end, which would give me essentially the same plan that I was on, where I could get my inhaler for cheap, my EpiPen for cheap, life-saving items for cheap, as well as see the doctor with low copays. What was actually happening was I would have had to spend upwards of $800 in order to be able to get that same plan, which I didn't have at the time because I was a law school student who just exited law school. And so what I decided to do was, first, I was actually, without healthcare for a while and had to pay out of pocket for costs because it wasn't the proper time of year to register for New Jersey Family Care. But then I went on to register myself for New Jersey Family Care, and I had insurance, but I was not able to see any of my usual doctors. I had to find new doctors for every single piece of care that I had been receiving, some doctors which I had been seeing for over a decade. Now, this may not seem like a big deal, but let's analyze it a little bit. When you talk to moderates and conservatives, they tend to tell you, oh, people have more choice when we have a private and a public system. And yeah, sure, I had the choice of being under Blue Cross Blue Shield, being under NJ Family Care, being under Humana, et cetera, et cetera. I had those types of choices. But when it came to the choices that actually matter, like being able to choose who my doctor is, I didn't have that choice at all. I had to go with doctors who were accepting NJ Family Care. And as a Black woman, it is very, very important to me to be able to choose my doctor. We've all read the stories about how when Black people, and especially Black women, go and see different doctors, how sometimes their pain is ignored, how sometimes their cries for, hey, I have this issue, can I have this medicine, is ignored. And it's really, really important to me, as I'm sure it is to many Black women and many Black people watching this, that we have doctors that we're comfortable with. And so it is not enough to say that, oh, well, you can get this kind of healthcare and you have a doctor at least. Yes, a doctor is good and it's a step up from having no doctor. But we, again, are an exceedingly wealthy country. And so the first thing I want to do with my Medicare for All plan is eliminate copays, eliminate deductibles, and eliminate premiums, and make sure that we are funding healthcare for all by taxing the mega wealthy in this country. The next thing I want to do is make sure that we get rid of in-network requirements. If you are in the one state over, or if you are in some part of your state that's not the North or the South, or you're in a different part of the country, there is no reason that you should have to suffer for getting sick because you traveled. It is unfair and unreasonable to charge people extra because they are out of network. And when I'm elected to office, we are going to eliminate that as a requirement and make sure that you can receive the healthcare you need, no matter where you are in this country. Moreover, I want to support current legislation in Congress that fights to make sure that our prescription drugs are low cost. And I also want to make sure that people who need various prescriptions can also buy them from overseas if the cost is cheaper. I mentioned earlier in this conversation how I am a person who is asthmatic, and so I use an asthma pump. And I also mentioned that I'm a person who needs an EpiPen. I need an EpiPen for bee stings, for eating peanuts, and for eating shellfish. And these are life-saving items. These are not choices or something that, really there's kind of some sort of alternative. I need an inhaler in order to breathe, but you know how much my inhaler can cost up to? $250. That's groceries for somebody for a week or a month. My EpiPen, I only need those in extreme situations, either when I consume peanuts or shellfish or get stung by a bee. But again, if I don't have that, my throat can literally swell, close, and I could die. There is no reason that something like that should cost $300. $300. It is unacceptable, and we need to make sure we're driving down the cost of prescription drugs, and I will support current legislation that does that, as well as fight to make sure that people who need prescription drugs can buy from overseas if the price is cheaper. I also pledge to be a fighter for reproductive rights when I'm a member of Congress. I want to also make sure that abortions are covered under Medicare for All, because there is no reason that a woman should be punished for her gender and have to shell out a bunch of money simply because she's making one choice for her body. And I will absolutely be an advocate for abortion rights and make sure that abortion rights and reproductive rights generally are covered under Medicare for All. Finally, Black mothers in New Jersey are 7 times more likely to die during childbirth than their white counterparts. This is sad, unacceptable, and dangerous. We are no longer going to tolerate hospitals not being held accountable for the way they treat Black women when it comes to them giving childbirth. We've heard all the stories of people having excessive amounts of bleeding and asking for help and being ignored and then ultimately bleeding out. We've heard the horror stories of people experiencing extreme pain, asking for medicine, being ignored, and then later it being found out that they really were having some type of internal or healthcare issue that was fatal. No more of that. And finally, in a state like mine, like New Jersey, Black women are 7 times more likely to die during childbirth than their white counterparts. This is unacceptable, this is sad, and this is dangerous. When I get into Congress, I will make sure that we are holding hospitals accountable for really making sure that their standard of care is top-notch for everyone who comes in to seek care and not just those with certain racial privilege. We've all heard the horror stories of Black women going to hospitals and having profuse amount of bleeding and then asking for help and being ignored, and eventually that bleeding turned into death and turned fatal. We've also heard the stories of Black women saying they're experiencing extreme pain and they would like some medicine or some help, and doctors ignoring that. And then a death occurs and it's found out that actually there really was something going wrong. That type of medical care is unbecoming of doctors, and we should not accept this in our society for any reason, but especially for the reason of somebody's race. And so as your Congresswoman, I will fight to make sure that we are holding hospitals accountable to make sure that we are preventing these types of deaths from occurring in our society. And now I want to talk about the Clean Water Act. I want to go on record by saying that I am against fracking, and especially because clean water is something that is very, very, very important to me. In my state, the state of New Jersey, we have a severe problem with lead in the water. And that lead in the water doesn't come from fracking, but it comes from old lead pipes that have not been replaced over time. And frankly, that politicians have put off until, activists really blew up this issue. They put it off doing anything about it for a very long time. And this has resulted in childhood lead poisoning, and it is a severe, severe issue. And so I want to make sure that when I get to Congress, I am pushing, one, to make sure that I'm bringing federal funds home to the district to help replace those lead pipes and help make sure that we have clean drinking water for all New Jerseyans, but especially those in the 10th Congressional District. Moreover, I want to make sure that I am working with my colleagues to push forward a Green New Deal so that we can make sure that we are creating jobs and facilitating green infrastructure via replacing pipes or other various infrastructure projects that we can use to make sure that we're having green space, a green environment, and clean water. And now I want to talk about ICE and immigration. I again want to go on record by saying that I am pro abolishing ICE and also abolishing private detention centers as well that do nothing to keep our communities and our homes safe. I also want to fight to make sure that I am supporting the task force to reunite families, to make sure that damage that has already been done by ICE is rectified and fixed, because there is a lot of trauma that we really have to take responsibility for, hold people accountable for, and ultimately fix. With regard to more general policy on immigration, I want to make sure that I am a fighter and that I support DACA when I'm elected. I also want to make sure that we are catching as many people under DACA as possible. I want to make sure that we can expand DACA to include those who have a GED or maybe seeking out their GED, as well as those who may be working a gig job. Because currently the way DACA operates is you have to have a degree as well as be working a full-time job. And in this economy, in the way, the state of our society currently, that really does not reach enough people who really, really should be here and who we should welcome into our country with open arms. I also want to make sure that we are creating a real pathway to citizenship and one that can adequately be navigated by people who came to this country when they were under the age of 18, when they came here as minors. We have all listened to the life stories of folks who came here and have at like age 2 and 4 and 6, some so young it's not even really in memory when they came to this country. And they get older and they start to have to do things like apply for financial aid or other things that they would need citizenship for. And they find out that, oh wait, I actually don't have everything that I need, because even though I came here when I was 3 months old, I don't have the necessary documents in order to be able to receive these benefits. And that's really unacceptable, and it's really, really sad. I want to create a system, a real pathway to citizenship that gives those who came here as minors, they only have to wait 5 years in order to be able to seek out a pathway to citizenship and seek out citizenship. There is no reason that somebody should live pretty much their entire lives in this country and have no real way to achieve citizenship or have a really, really difficult time achieving that. So I want to make sure that we are making a real pathway to citizenship for people who came here as minors and who are undocumented. Additionally, we need to make sure that we are not punishing people for seeking an education simply because they had a different nation of birth. Here's the thing. There are a lot of people who want to go to college, who want to get an education, who want to then go on and enter the workforce and have careers. And they're stopped because as a result of them being born in another country, they cannot receive financial aid. Now, hopefully, we will be able to fix how much colleges cost generally, and this will no longer be an issue. But in the meantime, I want to make sure that we are not punishing those who are undocumented for trying to seek an education. Therefore, I want to make sure that people who are undocumented can also receive federal financial aid for public colleges as well as HBCUs, because everyone should be allowed to have an education, and it's good for our society for people to be educated. And that's what I look forward to working towards as a Congresswoman. I also want to make sure that we are creating a real pathway to citizenship and one that can adequately be navigated by people who came to this country when they were under the age of 18, when they came here as minors. We have all listened to the life stories of folks who came here and have at like age 2 and 4 and 6, some so young it's not even really in memory when they came to this country. And they get older and they start to have to do things like apply for financial aid or other things that they would need citizenship for. And they find out that, oh wait, I actually don't have everything that I need, because even though I came here when I was 3 months old, I don't have the necessary documents in order to be able to receive these benefits. And that's really unacceptable, and it's really, really sad. I want to create a system, a real pathway to citizenship that gives those who came here as minors, they only have to wait 5 years in order to be able to seek out a pathway to citizenship and seek out citizenship. There is no reason that somebody should live pretty much their entire lives in this country and have no real way to achieve citizenship or have a really, really difficult time achieving that. So I want to make sure that we are making a real pathway to citizenship for people who came here as minors and who are undocumented. And now I want to talk about amnesty. Listen, there are real issues going on in other countries that may make somebody want to immigrate to this country. They may be fleeing violence. They may be fleeing persecution. They may be fleeing poverty. And there is no reason why we should not grant them amnesty. This country should be a welcoming one, and there's no reason why we should punish people for simply wanting to make a better life for themselves. And so, as a congresswoman, I would support giving amnesty to those who are undocumented because, again, everyone deserves to live a quality life. And if somebody is fleeing a situation that really hinders that for them and severely hinders that for them, I would even go as far as to say, we need to make sure that we are opening our doors to those folks and making sure that they can rebuild a life here in the United States. And now I'm going to talk about codifying Roe v. Wade. I want to go on record and say that I am 100% in favor of a woman's right to choose. And therefore, I believe that we should codify Roe v. Wade because, listen, people have a right to self-determination, and they have a right to make choices for their own body and their own reproductive rights. And we should not, as elected officials, have any say in hindering that. In fact, we should help facilitate people having as much choice as possible so they can make the best choice for themselves, their healthcare, their families, and their lives. And now I want to talk about saving the United States Postal Service. The United States Postal Service provides us with a publicly funded benefit of being able to send our mail, being able to receive mail, etc. And there's no reason why we should be gutting the funds from that and taking away benefits from people who work for that post office when this is a real benefit to our society. So one thing that I do support is making sure that they can have public banking done via U.S. Postal Service. This will bring banking to lower class communities. This will bring banking to rural communities. We can do a lot better job, and all we have to do is really dig in and make sure that we're saving the U.S. Postal Service because it can provide so many crucial services to areas that otherwise may not be reached.